I've got 4000 hours in this game, and if you know Path of Exile, you know that's not very impressive. Around here, that still qualifies me as a noob, and I embrace it. Can you beat Path of Exile with only default attack? Hey there folks, this is Ketchu, and I'm about to tell you the rules. I can only do damage with the default attack. That's it. Solo self-found to make my suffering private, and to avoid cheating with the stash, I picked Marauder as my race, for better or for worse. Named myself Ulrich the Upset, because if this run was going to be stupid, I wanted the name to warn people. It's actually pronounced Ulrich the Upset. To see, ejected me into the Twilight Strand, as it does with all unwanted things. The zombie-feeding idiot coughed up a gem. I tossed the useless thing into the sea, over my shoulder, for good luck. A few murdered corpses later, I also chucked away my mana flask. Won't be needing that. About a minute into the future, a ruthless support gem got to experience the refreshing taste of seawater as well. Killing Hillock was not that hard, just extremely manual. The biggest risk was old age. Hit and run worked wonderfully. Speaking of which, my next video will feature that exact strategy, just way more evil. Something to look forward to. Anyway, once I got the beat down, I just staged out until Hillock had Hillocked his last. At the crack of level 2, I increased my damage, then the game booted me out. Rude. Lionized Watch, the fate of all ruins, where unwanted loot meets vendors, and dreams go to die. It's like a postcard from hell with depression. I like it. For booking Hillock on the express shuttle to the great beyond, Nessa and Bestel rewarded me with chores. Dorkley gave me a useless skill ball. Over the shoulder, for good luck. At the coast, things seemed manageable at first glance, but on second glance, it looked like the first glance had been lying. I felt like an NPC fighting with just the default attack. The fire breathers introduced themselves the traditional way, and meeting Fire Fury hurt even more, but I wasn't done yet. I gathered Fire Fury and her entire extended family, and politely escorted them to the waypoint, where I put an end to the very angry family reunion with a ketchup so powerful it killed us both. Great start. On the upside, she pushed out my first rare item. Less of a reward, more of a consolation prize. Before checking out the tides, I went to investigate the mess that is this league's special seasoning. I knew something was wrong when the ground was having a seasonal depression. After increasing my damage with a level up, I found a mirage. Some Jinn had a wall of text to say about it. Naturally, I just ignored it and wished for more monsters. Inside the thing, I just followed my instincts, killed some fidget spinners, and what do you know? Refunding everything back to reincarnation was the correct answer. Upon reaching level 4, I increased my damage and ignored the Jinn again back in the reality we actually care about. Next up, Tidal Island. I enjoyed a relaxing stroll along the beach, increased my damage when I leveled up, and then introduced Hailrake to the ancient martial art of enthusiastic blunt force. For my good work, Nessa paid me with a wink, a bottle of gamer juice, and another useless materia. Further inland, the mirages were back again. Level 6 arrived, and with it, another microscopic increase in my ability to inconvenience living things. Not long later, I stuffed every empty equipment slot with whatever scraps of civilization I could duct tape onto my body. Then level 7, more damage. The silver chicken was humanely returned to the dirt. I unclogged the local toilet system, started using steel skin in the pipes. Level 8, more damage. Level 9, more damage. At this point, my character sheet was beginning to resemble a very slow avalanche. Next, I sprinted to the ledge waypoint, then used the portal I left earlier to return to the pipes in search of Jet Station. Foresight, baby. With 4000 hours in the game, even I can manage that much. The brooding princess tried to protest my arrival, but she couldn't even find the room to scream under my relentless battering. Level 10, more damage. I was leveling as aggressively as possible, because I knew I'd need all the help I could get, and possibly several miracles, but we'll get to that later. There was a mirage near the Jet Station. I wished for onslaught and adrenaline from the cosmic vending machine, and with those two chemical encouragements coursing through my bloodstream, I converted the enormous stupid crab into extremely fresh sashimi. The reward was a skill point, which I immediately invested into my favorite long-term strategy, increasing my damage. Back at the ledge, I crossed paths with Aku Aku, who appeared to have spent the years since the Crash Bandicoot era discovering carbohydrates. What kind of a deity calls himself false god? That feels like branding self-sabotage. Double KO. We seem to be running into a theme here. Up in the climb, a slow and insidious killer wrote a check my body almost couldn't cash. I hit level 11 and increased my attack speed. Bet you didn't see that coming. When those wheel execution victims rolled in, catching them with the default attack was just the best. Wheel executions were brutal, by the way. Welcome to planet Earth, ladies and gentlemen. Using only the default attack is probably the worst strategy for the Legion encounters. Still, I managed to crack open about 9 pinatas. I found it hard to pretend it was productive. I also assisted the glow-stick skeleton rave boss in bucket kicking, which went so well I briefly felt optimistic. I was so young and naive back then. To no one's surprise, the minions in the prison were tougher and hit harder than the minions of the previous areas, but the slow and careful approach took me to the next floor without too much drama. Inside a mirage, a mysterious voice reached out to me.
Why do you aid this bound criminal?
I don't know why I do things most of the time. I only know that I must kill.
Then I tried to speed things up, but learned real quick that slow and careful was still the correct way. The local summoners were particularly irritating. They bring their dead friends back to unlife and relentlessly scoot out of my range. Inside the warden's quarters, I saw Payadi disappear into thin air. She's always been slow in the head, but this was a new low. There was also a monster Han Soloed in the doorway. Very efficiently inconvenient. I was excited to fight Brutus inside a mirage, because I wished for some buffs upon the star. The budget vision didn't open, and it wasn't the last time the genie was disappointing.
Okay then.
When the room filled with Brutus-related problems, he emerged as the combo breaker. We were so close to another double KO. Back in Good Springs, I got Vitality Aura from Dogclay, and that became my emotional support blanket going forward. In the next area, the allure of a Soul Eater in the Mirage won me over, and it was every bit as awesome as I expected. God didn't like it that I was having fun, and promptly booted me out of the universe. Returned with a rollback. Prisoner's Gate greeted me with a greater general sense of disapproval than before. Unwilling to take it lying down, I decided to stand up for myself, bought a new axe, and increased my damage by smacking it with rocks. The replacement wish granted me 50% increased experience. Not as glamorous as devouring souls, but beggars can't be choosers. I put everyone inside underground just to avoid social interactions. From there, I prepared a chili dog for consumption. The chamber pot contents in the ship graveyard cave dropped like my retirement plan. Got stabbed in the back by Farengar. Penetrated Marvel's hole with my existence. Received another useless glowing ball from Nessa, and bought a rejuvenation totem and intimidating cry. After just 10 minutes into splitting Mervale's moist cavity, an enemy kindly dropped another intimidating cry. Of course, the duel with Princess Squidward herself wasn't terrible. You can get used to almost anything, the one exception being an icicle inserted in the lower postal code. I was already slow as a slot third, so her freezing my joints into museum exhibits while teleporting around the room was not a fantastic time. Eventually, she was shipped back to the factory. The room immediately felt lighter, like someone had opened a window in a fish market. Act 2 began in the Leaf Village, where the locals greeted me with enthusiastic violence, but I was enjoying myself, standing there in the middle of enemies, with no gimmicks, just pure, unadulterated physical badassery. Very cool vibes. To balance things out, I really despised these nut-spitting snakes that slither away like maggots escaping a coffee pack. Made me want to grab some wines and go ah like Mowgli. But I settled on materializing my feelings through the passive tree, like an adult. At Forest Camp, I used Lillian to identify items for the first time ever. How long has this been a thing? I have been suffocating under the lack of weight of wisdom scrolls. Level 20 dawned upon me in the crossroads. From there, my rage came thundering at my enemies with never-before-seen speeds. That was a lie. I saw no difference. Come back here, you stupid... Oh my god. The stinky inhabitants of Chamber of Sewers almost turned me into a menu item, which would have been embarrassing. I also realized something fascinating. Whenever a necromancer resurrects those leaking sewer zombies, they apparently vacuum all the poop juice back into the corpse, just so it can leak it out again. Nature truly is beautiful. Under the rubble of the first floor, it finally hit me. I had not completed a single trial yet, in the same area code. A rogue exile helped me with some self-reflection. I actually fight worse than an NPC. On the bright side, Fidelitas was an uncharacteristically easy fight. Usually I get to have a minor stress test against him. For whatever reason, Cruz let me pick a skill ball from his collection. I chose the Ice Herald, because it came without fireworks and only boosted my default attack. Back on the road again. I brawled against Bravado and put an end to his Bravalo. I really hate these shield spear guys, because they can hit me outside my range, and I find it extremely inconvenient to take that one extra step forward. I've actually hated them for a while now, but remembered only now to tell you about it.
A wish for riches.
My wish for riches resulted in almost no riches. What a crappy genie. Marauders are slow mentally and physically. To offset this glaring problem, I decided to work with Kratin this time around. There was a skill point waiting for me in the Western Forest. On the way there, a mirage in the riverway sent my soul directly into the 5th stage of existential dread. Death.
No!
But I'm about as stubborn as a thing that doesn't quit when he should, and got Doedre's elixir for my troubles. A random mirage with chilled and hindered enemies had more riches than when I actually wished for those. Stupid genie. Einhar assisted me in plowing through the riffraff. Some might say that's not allowed, but who am I to say no to that smile?
I didn't hit a single one of those exploding idiots.
I'm sorry, Path of Exile. I won't have a lunch break again. Please don't kick me behind the 6000 queue. I couldn't go a minute into the Western Forest without eating shit. Turns out drinking a Doedre smoothie was not a fantastic life choice. After recovering from that mistake, I plucked a pretty flower, beat up Loverboy, entered the Weaver's tunnels, and attempted to return some of my disappointment back to Varash or whatever.
What? Why? You could have anything and you wish for frogs. All right.
I take it back. She beat me. I got toads instead of frogs. She really can't do anything right.
Stupid frog, stay still! These type of enemies are exceptionally annoying.
I was banished to the main menu again. Map got reset. I obtained a skill point from Rapguard and received a warm welcome back in the Western Forest again. Back in the Spider Pit. These mirage enemies that dart back and forth brought my piss to a boil. Didn't help that they were extra tanky because blue.
Frick 'em.
The Weaver was actually a tough fight. I had to pop and weave, stall for time, and let my potions and magical first aid do their thing. The sticky webbing on the ground did my survival no favors. Poison is like kryptonite, also green. But eventually, the Weaver succumbed to the extreme pounding. I bet I made Silk jealous with that. On my way to bark up the correct tree, I got a good beating for the road, screamed in the ear of a Rothschild warden to let him know they were about to get hit real hard. After the mirage, the genie chimed in again.
You fight like a Dekara.
Do they also use the default attack?
Chopping down oak with an axe turned out to be surprisingly easy. Just like in real life, just kind of half pay attention and everything works out. Shopping for axes, however, felt completely pointless, because the shops didn't stock any in stock, which is inconvenient when you're looking for axes. And it's not like I talk to Krust for fun. He rules. Near the old bridge, I found a chivalry crate sitting in some ruins, guarded by 3 stooges.
I wonder if these guys will attack me if I take this. Yeah, I got 6 gold and now I'm fighting. Wow, trash.
How utterly unexpected. And when I say unexpected, I mean totally expected. Kate gave me my 8% increased movement speed. Probably a stupid choice. Everything was so slow. I wanted to at least move fast. That never happened. Then I detoured back to the prison to complete that trial, before it slips my mind again. After that, I poisoned a tree to enter wall ruins. Got greeted by a severe lack of hospitality in the lobby. Found my 3rd bottle of G fuel. Gotta go fast. I wish. I was forced to use advanced tactics like standing in the doorway to limit the amount of participants injecting damage into my spine. Then kind of just spaced out and accidentally tackled some big ball out of the way. Just outside, I tried to ignore Einhar, but couldn't refuse his enthusiasm. Even with his help, the local rituals almost collapsed my electrocardiac waveform. Those mountainous lines came close to being flattened. As emotional compensation, I hit level 26 and grabbed the slaughter node, which allows my delicate feelings to spike from 0 to 100 slightly faster than before. Couldn't really tell the difference. After having my clothes almost folded, with me still inside them, the ritual reward reveal was not worth the emotional investment. Not even a little.
I got... Just the armor is scraps.
The fact that I was 5 levels over the area and still having massive trouble converting enemies into biodegradable waste was not painting a promising picture.
It will surprise you to learn that I am not popular.
I am surprised, Einhar, you're the best.
After speeding through the cavern, I stopped by the camp to pump my load into Yena, purely for business purposes. The drool bucket was still complaining about the darkness, even though the lights were already back on. He's just a little slow like that.
I have never seen the sun with my own eyes.
Man, you need to touch some grass, loser.
Inside the pyramid, I noticed something strange on the map, a little thing in the distance, which meant I had no choice but to figure out how to get there. After carefully cuddling roughly 90% of the map's edges, we call it edging, I finally found it. My reward? A wordless wall skill damage thingy. So that was a productive use of my time. This picture reminds me of my time in school. Eventually, I reached the wall oversoul. The fight itself wasn't that hard. The minions he spams, however, were far too durable to care about, so I ignored them. 2 minutes and 30 seconds later, the boss finally passed on peacefully screaming, and not a moment too soon. Almost reached terminal boredom again. On my way to San, I rescued Clarissa. She was ungrateful and sent me off to find her boyfriend. My wish for riches from the gene of disappointments got a 100% increase compared to before. Once inside Sarn, the shop finally stocked weapons, actual weapons. I bought 3 axes, poured my thick alchemy all over them, and managed to roll an upgrade. Didn't really notice much of a difference, but at least the normal enemy started dying in one hit, which felt encouraging. Then an annoyingly durable enemy tested the sufferance of my patience. After finally bringing it down, the Fadamaka revived as an apparition. That was fun. What's better? I got to enjoy no fruit from my laborious performance, because the game disconnected me again.
Oh boy.
At least the rollback didn't eat my weapon, so we're calling that a win. Next, an angry crematorium rush. Trial done, rage kept building. Even Piety showed concern.
I'm okay, Piety, thanks.
After locating Tolman, I told Clarissa he swiped left. She handed me sewer keys and told me to flush myself, and Mami Mua granted me a very appropriate aura, which immediately replaced my Herald of Ice. Anger felt more on brand. The sewers were fun. I ignored most of it, rushing for the titties. I mean busts. Blue enemies are usually the ones I stop for a nice slice of experience, but I gave up on the stink bombers. They used the Heralded strategy of avoiding my swings by casually swaggering away, and that annoyed me to no end. After Hargan booked me for the breasts, I galloped through the marketplace and into the catacombs. Got surprised how hard even the common enemies in there hit, and zoomed through the trial.
Stupid Roombas are too slow.
And then I realized I forgot another trial, so I pivoted to rectify that immediately. Along the way, 3 statues hiding in some ancient porta potties distracted me. Got an Elden Ring boss fight for my curiosity.
Very cool.
Back in the marketplace, I went out of my way to find a pitcher, but couldn't find another one in the Mirage. Disappointing, but not surprising. From Battlefront to Berlin, every disco I get in my heart is pumping, or not.
Oops.
After getting the ingredients for the hemorrhoid cream, I skipped the rabble in Solaris Temple 2, completed a rage cluster, was reminded why I hate these peer enemies, spent way over a minute scraping down a mentally retired twerp, which forecasted some serious unpleasantness. After getting the pooper ointment from the weird punk poop lady and applying it to the pulsating butthole in the sewers, I earned myself another ass-kicking in the next area. Nobody was surprised when Gravicius sent me crying home to mommy. I ran out of healing potions, couldn't even kill one of his minions, and separating him from his allies didn't help either. My attack power against his energy shield was a rough equivalent to a paper cut trying to pierce a riot shield, and he maced me so fast I struggled to get a hit in the first place. I hope all of his children were born without buttholes. So I pivoted. My attempts at conquering all things wrapped in Imperial Gardens resulted in me being ejected from existence repeatedly, turning my perception of time into a leftover slinky straight out of a washing machine. I had a good cry and called it a day.
I hate chasing down these butt munches.
While carefully pushing for the Imperial Gardens waypoint again, I leveled up, appreciated how the camera always starts with the rotting butt, and decided it might finally be the time to invest in defense. Because I knew I can achieve victory by simply outlasting my enemies, but mostly because my butt had been handed to me one too many times. Do we have enough butt jokes? After finally grabbing the waypoint, I hoped to save my progress by immediately exiting to the login screen. Then I returned and scoured almost every corner looking for that shitty plum. From there, I vented my anger on the worm guarding the apple, handed the plum bong combo to Farengar. He rewarded me with a ring, and then he fathered himself out of existence. Very dignified. The ring was useless, by the way, big shocker. Then failed all the economic tricks in my book to reroll shops for better weapon bases, like bouncing to main menu or creating a new instance. Have you heard of the saying, having fun isn't hard when you got a library card? But a load of absolute nonsense. My enthusiasm lasted exactly. I couldn't go 5 feet without getting boned, frozen or wrecked. And curse these ones of the deepest pits that bless you with 3 hexes at the same time. I hate him. To prepare for round 2 against Gravicius, I crafted some fire resistance into my gear.
76. Is it 7-6 or 6-7 what the kids are saying these days?
Then I attempted to level up in the slums. My criteria for a good farming area were simple. No fast enemies, no ranged enemies, no poison nonsense, and preferably enemies that politely stand still while I hit them. I was also hoping to score a new weapon.
I really hate these guys.
But in the end, slums didn't cut it. Leveling up, too slow. So I returned to the library, wished for more frogs. My face got an arrangement with the pavement for that. The shop obviously didn't have any weapons, because why would it? Then deep in the archives, I excavated toilet paper for Silsa.
I finally figured out how to fight against these guys. Just fight a corner and they'll stay on one side. That's right, you blue idiots. There's nothing you can do about it now.
Silsa saw fit to grant me a corrupting cry in recognition of my literary genius. Obviously, testing was mandatory. Corrupting cry did damage, which, according to the sacred creed of me, was not allowed. Over the shoulder, with my gear somewhat updated, except for the weapon, I entered Ebony Barracks pants moist of hope. Couldn't even kill one essence monster, rewrote the area and tried again anyway. Hit level 36 paving the way forward, immediately checked for new weapons. No luck, of course. When facing the Apparat cosplay, I ran out of potions immediately. Killing his stupid groupies was already difficult. Then the energy shield showed up as another barrier to entry. Unbridled tears weren't far from breaking through, yet I somehow managed to beat Gravicius by the power of old age, or second-hand embarrassment.
Yes! Suck it, Gravicius.
And then Maramami gave me a reward, and you're not going to believe this, it was useless.
Too bad.
Next up, piety. My first plan was to methodically beat everyone up in the Temple of Lunacy, but bleep those corpse-exploding idiots who kept running away like butt-knuckers. On level 2, I slaughtered everyone in my way. The tentacle ladies were the only annoying ones.
No, never mind. Found the corpse exploders. At least they do not move in herds. Is that guy trying to have a bath or something? Okay, freak you then.
Piety herself wasn't too bad. Her firebending form hurt me the most despite my capped resistances. Mid-fight lag did not help, and chasing her teleporting fanny around the room was also somewhat inconvenient. While dancing, Piety tried to teach me about honor.
Do the honorable thing and die!
Then she demonstrated the technique herself. After that, I switched the server just in case, because my next goal was the Lord's Labyrinth. But before that, I finally discovered a use for gold. Apparently, you can gamble for gear with it, which was perfect, because I sure as hell wasn't investing in real estate with this Mayfly character. Lady Luck spat my way that day, and I rolled a new chopper. Just needed one more level to use it. It's a good thing I abstained from testing the Labyrinth right away, because I was still struggling to kill one rare enemy in a reasonable lifetime. But I had just leveled up, so I wrapped my fingers around my new stick, and returned to the rare enemy with double damage. It went much better. The only problem was that I missed every third strike, but grades don't matter as long as you graduate. Since I was already halfway through the Tower of Stupid, I decided to try my hand at domino toes. Most glaring headache were the spark totems that were far too durable for me to break. The fight took so long I learned that Domino's minions actually had names. In a fit of irony, the man himself wasn't worth much more than time, as long as I avoided the totems and his punch. When he hit puberty, he really put the man in Mantis. The corrupting blood was something to watch out for, but eventually he went to meet Kitava. The start of the labyrinth was rough, but I stubborned my way to Isaro, and things went surprisingly well. I proudly tanked his attacks. My damage wasn't too bad either. Our fight just slowly devolved into a slugfest. At the end of the labyrinth, I tossed the vitality aura into the font for 2% quality. This increased the radius slightly. How very useless. For my ascension, I went berserker and chose Grave the Slaughter, increasing my attack speed 1% per rage point. So I immediately tested it, and honestly, I could barely tell the difference, even though my damage stepped into the thousands. Then I smoked a local pigeon in the name of good luck, weaseled my way into Highgate, and paused to admire a cape so cool, it practically needed its own theme music. After talking to Lady D and Owen, I was sent to rip the banner from Volt's dead hands.
I really hate these lightning idiots.
Wall hit like a truck full of other trucks. I got the banner, used the banner, that really excited Nico for some reason. Owen gave me a berserk skill, which I put to good use. Then Lady D sent me to the mines to find a rapture device. My quest was off to a fantastic start, but using the Bethesda companion resurrection technique worked wonders. I'm the best company to myself, after all. The amount of struggle that clouded the mines was another bad sign. I made the mistake of activating Nico, and now his quest infested my UI, in the level below or above. I'm not sure where mines level 2 is supposed to be. I was barely surviving, even with a replenishing shrine. Saving Desrek or whatever its name was wasn't such a good time either. And I still don't understand how this over-glorified laser pen has anything to do with underwater cities. Things got heated up in Kaum's nightmare. I tried to ignore everyone at first.
Hey!
Learned nothing and kept doing it anyway.
Oh, I hate this place. I was so close to the waypoint when I died. It makes me all kinds of mad.
My attempts at fighting back in 1 out of 3 strikes missed pace just resulted in me getting my grill fired up. I've seen better swings at a playground, and getting my subscription to life cancelled wasn't beyond me either. Since I was doing so awful against the common trash, would I stand any chance against the boss? Turns out yes. He was only dangerous when he had his minions help him. Kings, am I right? I hate these little fight pits. One does not simply walk into the arena. At one point, the Grim Reaper was in town. I hoped he wasn't looking for me.
Oh my god, I'm in trouble again. I love screaming for my exerted attacks and then missing both strikes. It's just the best. Oh no, not these stupid birds again.
In a strange way, using my totem as a distraction while hiding behind walls to regenerate was kinda fun, but the experience still scaled heavily to frustration.
Oh, I survived.
From here on out, I started using portals as security blankets, like quick saves in Bethesda games for crashes. In the last picky pit, I got turned into something resembling sweaty beet salad, but I wasn't done yet.
No! So close.
Even after the oversized hull monitor stopped being my problem, his minions continued doing their best to prevent me from becoming any less of a future disappointment.
An adequate performance challenger.
I don't think we were watching the same fight.
The arena portion was easier, mostly because I could skip the fights. Or so I thought. The third arena was locked until I defeated the 3 guardians. Everything always comes in pairs of 3. After that, I fought the fedora-less neckbeard himself. Compared to the nonsense required to reach him, he was basically a joke. After making a smoothie from the eyeballs, I tried to block the laser with my body. Lady D got a sick makeover, I received nothing of value. And Nico keeps calling me about going into his mine. Pushing through the column of the beast was a massive pain in the pooper. I kept getting turned into organic confetti. Very festive. I mastered the art of screaming for my life. At one point, I realized I had forgotten to turn my auras back on after switching some gear. I always find new ways to disappoint myself, but worry not, it didn't make much of a difference. Even if the local barbarians are tough, the boss is usually easy. Right? That wasn't the case. Like, at all. Fire hit like an express shuttle to Pain Town. I couldn't even break the eye hatcheries, which meant the playground got crowded, causing me to accidentally run into the helicopter rope. After 6 minutes of this, I gave up strategically, because I wasn't done yet. During the hour of leveling up, I inspected a worthless cancerous sore, delved into Nico's mind to shut him up, and learned pretty quickly that it wasn't for me.
Oh my god, I hate this guy. Really?
Then came crafting and gambling, until I was out of resources and hope. But I wasn't done yet. After a lunch break, my 2 brain cells floating in the void behind my eyes located each other.
I got an idea.
I bought Enduring Cry, and with that, plus a few hiccups, I finally managed to calm Piety down.
Yes!
Calm wasn't half the man you are, Marauder.
I know, right?
And God punished me with more Path of Exile. Next up, meeting the massholes hiding Malachi's organs. Chevron is what we kind people refer to as a subscribing freak. She was not difficult, not even a little. The fight against your mother-in-law, however, was like wrestling tax forms. I hate her big ugly guts. Her face looks like Salvador Dali had a bad day with glue. It droops as much as her moves. Naturally, my brain's chaos resistance firewall was offline, so the stick figure sculptor was a tough poison puddle gauntlet to grow through. Malachi himself was a farce. I was more afraid of Piety's scripted tantrums than the man himself. The fight inside the floor sphincter was even easier. After the equivalent of sitting on a toilet for 4.5 minutes later, he imploded into his own butthole. After that, I increased my survivability by adding Blessed Call into the mix. Rust through some mountains, insert Terminator joke here. tried to keep my allies alive for once in the in-war pens, got bored almost immediately, went out of my way to slaughter as many foes as possible, got bored again after half the map ate dirt, then my heart sank because of a lag spike near the end, but fortunately I managed to deplatform Overseer Crow from life. From there, I entered insert name of place here. Lanny reminded me why we do this for the billionth time. I failed to gamble a better weapon, picked up a weird thermometer, ripped eyeballs off the bouncer, switched to new armor, skipped through the town, cheated a biometric scanner with the eyeballs, and entered Templar Courts. Inside, I made the executive decision to kill everyone. A bold strategy that immediately locked me in a year-long mirage, filled with enemies that came in bulk, and refused to die on principle. The voices in my head grew more talkative than ever. Back in the real game, I checked every corner for hidden areas and found nothing but near-death experiences. I Templar Avarius and the son he gave birth to were barely an inconvenience. Actually super easy. The hardest part was surviving the boredom of the forced waiting room experiences, and the fact that innocence could hurt me just by aura farming. He keeps demanding food sacrifices, but eventually, his face crumbled under my heavenly normal punch. After listening to some ASMR, an old man screamed at me angrily. Is it Tuesday already? Lonnie handed me something useless, and Bannon sent me after Utula. I spent 26 minutes inside the Seen Better Days courts, because I got defeated by furniture while trying to skip running Phage. Vented my angers on the locals for that by butchering more locals than necessary. They didn't give a single inch of experience easily. Ripped apart the Fire Pope and got hated to death by an essence monster. What? When enduring the smell of ruined square, I outsourced therapy violently, because I was still mad, and because my strings are melee 90% of the most of the time. Nothing super annoying. Before stopping Utula's reign of terror, I lured away an enemy with basically double regen, because I didn't want to die of old age dealing with that, while Utula did whatever it is he does. Thanks to a mirage that was 3 shrines active, I took him down with a blindingly fast attack speed.
You fool! You have no idea what you're doing.
I know, right? Pretty great.
Then I beat up Utula again for good luck, somehow burning 20 plus minutes in this area too. After collecting godly body parts and some keys in the reliquary, I found almost no gold inside the gold piles hiding in a vault. Lacking both sustain and damage, I worked my way to martial experience perk, which did surprisingly little to help in either. Then found a sweet looking puddle on the way to snack the glow stick in the ossuary. Then it was Kitava time. I chained life tap on the rejuvenation totem to solve mana problems. The slug on the rooftops did wonders to build confidence. Anatomy was optional to Kitava, because his heart was more trouble than the guy himself, unless he nailed 2 consecutive hits. The fight took forever. Maybe I could stop mentioning that now. Just assume all bosses are sadistic time loops. And you'll be right, as a reward, I lost 30% of my resistances. After getting Princess carried by Sin, he gave me a pep talk, a kiss on the forehead, and sent me off with a smile to experience more pain. Because it was in Act 6 where things got serious. I paid my boss fare by cleaning up a beach, ran for my life on the coast, met Aelith, who decided testing whether I could survive whatever she pulled out of her butt didn't require consent. Wow. Hunting for a manuscript on Tidal Island wasn't anything easy like walking on burning coals. Rerolling the instance didn't help much. To resolve this pickle and my irrational hatred of ranged enemies, I experimented with some aura shuffling, but it was when determination replaced anger, and this is not self-reflection, that I could survive just long enough to wade through a mirage with a soul eater waiting to remind me that nothing is easy. And for all that effort, this.
Haha, his boots are wet.
All rare sporting anything energy shield made me mentally check into Dante's Inferno, where my punishment is to ineffectually just swing and swing and swing. The beach gold piles actually somehow outclassed that pitiful vault from earlier, and the reward didn't matter. Next up, the mud flats, which immediately went about as well as expected. I took a brief break to gamble and somehow walked away with a ring, then crafted my resistances up to cap, which felt like progress, right up until corrupted blood reminded me how fun it is. Eventually, I challenged the queen and her lackey. She had some opinions about that. The queen herself was a teleporting piece of bodywood, but after chasing her around the swamp like a confused mall cop, I finally ripped the eyeball out of her skull. After saying hello to Nessa, everyone's favorite mermaid, I took on the time-consuming Tukohama, the brave warrior who spends too much time hiding inside his bubble wrap. Another classic case of the boss not measuring up to his own employees. After that, I couldn't be done with the carry warriors soon enough. There are a lot of them. Most of them have ranged weapons, and all of them suck pelvis. On the ridge, I felt like a shepherd dog running circles around a massive mob, trying to keep things somewhat under control. The prison seemed like a good place for leveling. The monsters aren't terrible, and the door frames make perfect kill boxes. And you've got to admit, kill box is the coolest box there is. I hate those 3 curse Wi-Fi things. After that plan fell through, I took care of the trial, speeded up to Chavrone, and gave her roughly 1,000 very dull cuts. In Prisoner's Gate, I gave Nessa a drive-by hello, and went after Aberrath. He wasn't too bad at first, the difficulty only really showed up once the help arrived. After that, I took a detour into a few heists. The idea was simple, easy loot with minimal fighting. The third heist nearly disproved that theory, but I did walk away with a useless flask. Next target was the puppet mistress. I tried leveling in the Prisoner's Gate first, then hit level 53 in the wetlands, then grabbed Art of the Gladiator. I had been drooling for that movement speed increase for a long time. Once again, barely noticed any difference. The puppet mistress wasn't worth mentioning. Back in the ruins, I finally rolled a better weapon, doubling my DPS, and honestly, it was about time. I also added Blood Rage to the kit, set Steel Skin to cast when damage taken, then dropped by Nessa to pick up a flag and to say hi. Blood Rage immediately made progressing feel more manageable, though getting the Olympic torch lit wasn't exactly easy, or fun. After a wild Valen Rat appeared, we sailed to Bikini Bottom. Mr. Crab and his extended family were quite hospitable, even gave me a nice bath. Around here the run actually started feeling kind of fun again. Since the Broken Bridge area wasn't too awful, I farmed a level and grabbed Valem's locket while I was at it. For my troubles, he handed me a supplement, which I gladly included into my trying to exist strategy. Then I headed into the crypt for the trial and Malikaro's map. We already ate that guy, didn't we? Malikaro sure knows how to track the minute hand of a clock. Idelidas was one shot away from not being a problem, but I was too stubborn to move. Helena rewarded my efforts with a pair of useless boots, so I threw them back at her. Other than that, the Chamber of Subos was kind of pleasant for a change. In the Ashen Fields, things continued normally. Shutting down the leaking tap on Cruz's shoulders wasn't too bad of an experience. For once, I decided to help Helena with Cruz's necklace, which is something I usually skip.
Never mind.
Then came the causeway, which sucks. Too many snakes, so I ignored everyone. Same strategy in Wall City, just keep moving and pretend none of this is my problem. The Dread ticket was actually kind of fun. Lots of cute little drop bears. So, naturally, I pretended to be a baby bear, ambushed Mama Bear, and collected some fireflies. Good times. I also grabbed Devotion from the tree, still working on my defense. Back in Wall City, Yina revealed her persona. You go, girl. The rest of the Arakali arc proved that once again, the journey was worse than the destination. Although I did have to pay a little attention so as to not become die from all the poison. While battling through Sand ramparts, I wondered what it takes for evolution to decide that a creature should weaponize its own children as homing missiles. Nature is amazing. While nosing around, I found a switch. Inside was a hidden stash containing 41 gold.
Wow, huge.
And some heist crap, which I've decided I'm not bothering with anymore. Awesome. Then it was more silver touching, which is exactly as fun as it sounds. My strategy at this point had evolved into something very sophisticated. Rush the bosses and only level up if they refuse to cooperate, and it's been working great. At one point, I think I dropped my watch in a pile of poo there. Such a shitty time. While digging through the equivalent of Reddit's comment section, I found something unpleasant. Your mother-in-law. This fight was incredibly annoying. You have to stay close to deal damage, which would be fine if the entire arena wasn't filled with worthless toxic waste. Harkan is the only one who's consistently useful with his payments. A ring with Dalmatian amounts of life. Nice. I also found a new armor piece in the pipes, which was a welcome upgrade considering the circumstances. Larissa assumed I'd help her again, and she was right. Whatever she got as a reward, I needed it. Next, I stopped by the town to rework my cast when damage taken setup. Steel Skin, Immortal Call, Vulnerability. Let's see how that goes. At this point, my buff rotation had evolved into what I called the Super Saiyan protocol. Whenever I got a situation on my hands, I just rolled my finger over the buttons, activating every buff I have, and started screaming. It worked surprisingly well. YOLO wasn't as easy as the others. Those homing water balls were extremely annoying. More than half my life kept disappearing to random attacks. Had to keep hitting and running like my life depended on it. Then I tried my luck in the Labyrinth. Good news, Isaro couldn't really hurt me. Better news, I found one of those dark shrines that turned the entire Labyrinth into a pleasant little ramp. The Labyrinth Rove I went out of my way to puzzle open was a waste of time. Still, I walked to the back room with 3 keys, plus 2 more from a chest, and a whole bunch of trivial loot. I also sacrificed a gem for currency to try it out. The results were shocking. For my ascendancy, I picked the aspect of carnage. Hopefully that won't come back to bite me later. On the bright side, my damage jumped up to almost 3000. After that, I found myself at the resurrection site, ready to help rip Tolman's soul back, screaming from the void.
Give it to me quickly.
Give it to me, baby!
I'm not apologizing. After the fun zombie rave, Larissa had some questions.
How could I have been so stupid?
That's love, baby.
In Crane Gate, I used the Outlast tactic of following the blood trail, culled some gemlings, picked up the sovereignty passive, and grabbed a new helmet along the way. Things went well until the Solaris Harbinger had some opinions about that. Then it was the Lunatic Temple arc, which was mostly an okay frolic.
Do you think that's enough winter mages? Holy heck.
After a brain-deadingly easy fight, I pocketed the moon orb. Then it was boss time. At first I let the stupid sisters fight amongst themselves, but then I got bored and stepped in. It was just like every other boss. Drop the totem, use Enduring Cry, and flail the weapon in a manner best described as aspirational. Repeat until someone falls over. After crossing the Blood Aqueduct and High Gate, the enemies in the descent began hitting significantly harder than those in previous areas, briefly reshaping my face into that of a surprise Pikachu. The mummy scrubbing in the desert proved difficult, primarily because I had imported half the map into the encounter. I then stopped by the vents to slap the buttocks of the basilisk, purely for business purposes. Following that, I went to pound Sin's daughter. She hit harder than those before her, big surprise. But with cooldowns and careful positioning, the fight went about how you'd expect. My investment in defense continued uninterrupted. After trialing the tunnels, I tried to leave without causing a scene. The locals declined this proposal, so I used Roomba to vacuum them into smaller problems. From there, I took on Daddy Longhorns, then Sin's wife for the set bonus, then General Electric. He hit shockingly hard. The worst part of the fight was the amount of patience it took, but you already knew that. After Sin opened the floor sphincter, I was immediately destroyed. The hero's journey was progressing as expected. Navigation remained flawless. I entered every wrong corner first. Eventually, your mother-in-law located Hinekora. I assumed they got along. The path to Maligara was fun. The man spread himself in front of me, which was fun, despite maintaining 75% lightning resistance. Chavron treated it as a speed bump in a school zone, and accelerated accordingly. She became one of the most difficult encounters to date. My field notes read as follows.
What the frick?
The Chavron and Trinity fights concluded with 7 deaths and sustained verbal abuse directed at my screen. It had been a while since a game made me this angry. Good times.
Yes. Stupid thing died.
The beast eventually pushed me out. I landed in a pile of excrement, was immediately criticized for the smell, and felt right at home. Back in a riot, I saved Bannon from his echo chamber as my first good deed of the day. The Green Batman fight took so long, I learned its name and the movesets it had in store. This has been an educational playthrough. My initial plan was to smack the soup out of everything on the roof. That plan lost most of its momentum once I remembered that every rare enemy in this run is a full-time job. Before long, I had lost all hope. Before resuming the pain, I finally solved my mana problems by linking Life Tap to basically every active skill I owned. The next area wasn't much better. Every inch of progress required tooth and nail fighting. Most of my strategy involved slowly luring enemies away in smaller groups, like a now very tired shepherd dog. My qualifications for the job were, presumably, in the mail. At this point, I was desperate for a level up. Not for power, but because the next tier weapons required it. My damage was never not bad.
And then I got an axe that I need 2 more levels to use. And here I thought I finally...
After wearing down Vilenta, I chased down the teardrop and the elixir. Both rewards were a waste of time. To compensate, I chaos spammed my way into a better weapon. Finally. And my chaos orbs are gone. Feeling optimistic again, I decided to try the Labyrinth. This attempt failed instantly, because I forgot to turn my auras back on. Again. Once the correct lights were on in the dashboard, things became surprisingly manageable, so I used the Labyrinth to level up. Traps were repurposed against enemies. Dark shrines were hunted. The odds were, in theory, being tilted. I then crafted 2 flasks with bleed immunity. A respectable adventurer would have done this much earlier. Pro tip, don't try to beat the Labyrinth with a weak character. Even if you collect every boon available, even if you dismantle each enemy carefully, even if you spend an hour walking the razor-thin line between victory and death, the game may still remove you from the premises right before the finishing line. But I wasn't upset. Oh no, I understand. After all, the developers of Path of Exile are still pretty new to this whole game development thing. You're lucky you can't hear the screaming my neighbors couldn't ignore. After sleeping off the sudden urge to turn my brain into confetti, I rediscovered that which I had lost almost immediately.
What the frick?
Avarius was not an easy fight. The statues assisting him were particularly helpful. Not only could they remove half my life in a single swing, they also ensured I could barely see what was happening. Very considerate. At some point I became so angry I started screaming in Finnish. I decided not to include that in the video, in order to preserve the last surviving fragments of my dignity.
Oh, that fight sucked.
The reward was not worth it. Only 2 areas stood between me and Kitava, so I put on my best brown and marched onward. Whenever the ground looked like it hadn't slept since February, enemy density increased to problematic levels. It became easy to get stuck. In any other situation that would be fun, this was not one of those situations. I don't remember exactly when, but I'd been ignoring rares for a long time, because they were generally not worth their weight in anything. Even blue packs were becoming more trouble than they were worth. I was so mentally checked out, I cannot confirm whether anything interesting occurred. More unbelievably, I didn't think I'd ever say this, but Kitava was easier than Avarius. Just like before, the cardiac examination was more difficult than the fight itself. One slip leads to another, and suddenly, you're buried in a mountain of oops. Eventually Kitava decided to cover the entire arena in fire. That was really cool. My max fire resistance didn't have much say in the matter. I prepared to launch my body at him repeatedly, until the problem resolved itself.
Yes! Itch.
Subscribe.
Kitava.
With Kitava's lifeline on a diet, Sin refused to speak to me, and I was unable to enter the end game. But that's fine, because I did not care. I beat Path of Exile with just the default attack.
Frick this.
Oh yeah, here's the skill tree. The first version was aggressively aggressive. I showed it to my brother, and he installed brakes on it. Please don't let me do this again. I feel more burnt out than a Dark Walker at a furry convention. And that's gonna do it for this time, folks. Feel free to shoot some challenge ideas at me, and do some of that engagement nonsense if you want to help out. Thanks for watching, see you next time, take care now, bye bye then, have a splendid day.
Hiilaa nyt saatana!